So we are now recording.
All right, we're ready for the preamble.
If you'd preamble us, that'd be great.
All right. Because of the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic and the limitations on group gatherings imposed by the governor's executive orders, this meeting is being held by electronic communication means on the Zoom platform. It is authorized by the county's April 15th, June 17th, and September 16th continuity of government ordinances. This authority's resolution of April 22nd and the Virginia statute signed into law on April 24th, permitting this authority to meet electronically to discuss and transact business necessary to continue its operations. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. Everyone on the phone and attending via Zoom from the public is in listen-only mode. During public comment period, please enter your comment in the chat and it will be read into the record. Include your full name and the magisterial district in which you reside. If you don't know your magisterial district, please provide a general location of your home, business, street address. We will run through the chat comments first and then take comments by telephone. For those on the phone, please use *9 to indicate you'd like to make a public comment. We will ask you to provide your full name and magisterial district or general location of your home or business, and then allow up to 3 minutes for your comment. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. With that explanation, I ask the board members attending to identify themselves in their current location in general terms. Let's see.
We could call a roll so we know who needs to go next.
Okay.
Trevor?
Trevor Henry, Assistant County Executive, logged into the meeting from our county office building.
Liz?
Liz Palmer, County Supervisor, and I am in my home in Ivy.
Bill?
I'm here and I'm at my home in Charlottesville.
Waldo?
I'm here in Stony Point.
And for myself, Bucky Walsh, I'm here at my home in Albemarle County. And I note that Donna is not on the call, but hopefully she'll be able to join us later. So that takes us to having a quorum, and I call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask for an approval of the agenda. I trust you have all had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes, or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that. Do a quick run down the list here. Trevor?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Waldo?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That takes us to brief announcements by authority members. Anybody have any announcements they'd like to make?
Actually, I do, Bucky. Just noting that we're in budget season process at the county, and that on the boards November
18.
18th. Thanks, Mike. I lost track of my dates. The 18th, we'll be having a discussion around the capital improvement plan program and getting some input from the board as a committee then gets launched to do a little more detailed work. So just noting that there will be a discussion around some CIP, as well as the board will get an update and do a little bit of a review of their strategic plan items that have been previously established, and we'll look to provide input to staff on any changes on that. So just noting that on the current strategic plan, broadband is the 9th priority for that 9. It's not necessarily in ranked order, but noting that that is a current strategic plan item for the board, and that this will be reviewed again within the context of direction to staff and some potential budget implications. So just kind of noting that, Liz, if there's anything else you wanted to mention related to that on the 18th. Thanks.
Not at this time. I'm just looking forward to your report, Trevor, a little later in this meeting. So.
Trevor, if following up on that, if we wanted to, let's just, pick a number out of the air, say get $100 million in next year's budget, is there something we should do for November the 18th?
If the broadband, I wanted to provide some input via our chief administration officer, I would say that is something that we could certainly do. I don't know if we want to put a number on it necessarily,
or maybe not that number.
Yeah. But, certainly, I think we talked about this at the last meeting on matters from the board of just recognizing the importance of broadband, especially in light of the ongoing pandemic and the state that is becoming our new normal. So I know other board members. There was a joint meeting with the school board a week ago, and in that discussion, several board supervisors members and school board members talked about extension of broadband, into the rural areas, but also putting an equity lens on and gaining access for those parts of the community that may technically have access to broadband but can't afford it. That seems to be a strong item from our board and from the school board. So I expect there'll be some discussions around that in earnest on the 18th.
I'd like to add something to that if I could, Trevor, if you're done.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that the board needs some direction in what's really needed to expand broadband, and it's more than just throwing money at it. We have some infrastructure issues, and we're trying to go about this in a somewhat strategic manner. And I think that an understanding of some of those issues would be helpful as they make decisions on money. So just a comment to broaden the discussion a little bit so they understand thoroughly.
Thank you, Liz. Any other brief comments, brief announcements? Then we will move on to the public comment period here. Mike, are you in control for that?
Yes, I am. If you have comments, please enter them into the chat and we'll go through them one at a time. And then after that, we'll go into the phone calls. So the first issue or first comment is from Dan O'Day. I'm assuming he's in Liz's district and Green Creek Road. Yes, there is cable going activity on Green Creek Road. Fortunately, we have Derek Kelly here with us this evening. He's going to be doing an update, so we'll try to answer that question for you, Dan, when we get to the VADI 2020 update in old business. Hopefully that helps with that one. Then a question from Tim Higgins in the Rio District, Mallard Lake. Are there any later than May 27th posted? If not, when will they be posted? Sorry,
Yes.
minutes. Okay, that's on me, Tim, and the board. I have quite a bit of work to do to catch up on the Albemarle Broadband Authority webpage. So I'm working diligently. We have some of the minutes that have been approved that I still need to post. And they may already be in there. I had to restructure everything based on the county's preferred method. So you have to go into the actual month. So you draw into minutes, then go into the month, and then in the month, you'll see the minutes from that meeting. So I'll get back with you on that. And anyone else who has questions about where to find the minutes. So thanks for asking that question.
Mike, you should have them all from me, but if not, let me know.
Yeah.
And I can send you another copy.
All right.
Since I take notes on Google Docs during all of our meetings, would it be inappropriate for me to share a link to that with Tim?
Yes, it
here
would.
Now?
It
Then I
would
will
be
not.
inappropriate because we have a set of minutes.
Sure.
Your
They're
notes
not
can be
minutes,
shared
they're
with
just me
anyone on
taking
a
notes.
personal basis, but
Sure.
but as a board member, we really need to go by the minutes.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Will do. David has also asked, David Ludwig, I would also like to know where to find minutes. Is that something you can follow? I will follow up on later. Great.
All right.
Any other questions from the chat? Okay, so now to take the phone call in, listeners, once again, identify your name, where you're located, and what magisterial district, if you have comments you'd like to bring to the ABBA board. So *9 for 962-27708. Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move on to 977-0544. Comments for the ABBA board. Okay, just listening in.
Great. Thank you all very much for attending. I think it's fantastic to have more public involvement. The next item on the agenda is approval of the September 23rd minutes. Bill, I note that you had distributed those. I read them with glee. Did you get any changes back from anyone?
Waldo gave me some suggestions. I had a sentence that was just absolutely butchered, and he made a good suggestion, and I fixed it. Yes.
Are there any material changes that should
No,
trouble the board?
it simply made it clear about how it clarified how money is being spent, or had, the spending of money. It was really just a grammatical change. Yeah, it was trivial.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
I'll second that. Let me run through a quick roll call. Trevor?
Approve, or yes, sorry.
Liz?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Waldo?
Yes.
And I vote aye as well. So the motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thank you again, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody taking a look at that. That's really helpful.
Moving on to old business, VADI 2020 and 2021 updates. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to introduce again to the board Derek Kelly, who's the Senior Government Affairs Official for the state of Virginia and North Carolina with CenturyLink, now Lumen. And Derek is joining us on the road this evening, so hopefully he's connected, and I'm going to promote him to panelist so that he can give us an update on where we are with the 8 projects that are involved in the VADI 2020. So let me quickly promote him. And let's get Derek online here in a second. So thank you for the patience, and as we bring Derek online. And should be coming on board. Okay, it's one of those awkward moments where I need to fill time, correct?
You have a song you'd like to sing?
Yeah.
Do you have any groups that might be appropriate?
No. Oh my, sorry about this, everybody.
Mark, while we're waiting for that, does it make any sense to push on with item B, and we'll swing back around to that?
Yeah, that's fine. I can provide the update on the VADI 2021. As most people are aware, the governor's budget has been sent to the floor for approval, and it seems like it's going to make an approval and increase the VADI budget to 50 million, originally set at 19 million. So that in and of itself gives us a lot of promise that the application that we've submitted with CenturyLink will be offered funds. So we're working in that direction. Looking forward to a December or early January announcement from the governor's office. So essentially the way that it works is the DHCD staff and the governor's broadband office goes through all of the applications, which there are a number of, evaluates them, and then puts forward which ones should be offered funds. And then the announcement actually comes from the governor's office. So we're looking forward to that. Hopefully I can get, I don't even see Derek on the line anymore. So when I promoted him to panelist, I think in the process of rejoining, he wasn't able to rejoin is what I'm assuming. So I apologize for that disconnect.
Let's push on, and when Derek rejoins,
Yes,
we'll bring
exactly.
in that piece.
Yep, you bet. All right. So on the old business, just continuing, right? So the big deal, you guys are probably aware, although this is not so much a ABBA meeting, but I mean an ABBA agenda item per se, because it's a county funded process. The coronavirus relief funds that the county allocated for a unique project with Shentel. So we're working with Shentel and have activated 2 sites in the county, one at Airport Joshua Road and the other in Crozet. This process is to announce and provide a fixed wireless service called Beam. And the way that they're putting it forward at present is they're doing direct mailing to the most likely people who can get online. And as people are coming online, they're getting service in unserved areas. So they're doing their direct mailing to people in the unserved areas first. So, you know, the news is that's great news. Things are moving on. There's 4 more sites that have been approved to be activated this year. So we're working in that direction to get those other 4 sites online soon. So we're anxiously awaiting additional updates from our friends at Shentel and the Beam fixed wireless service. So that's my brief update on the CRF. And I think, yes, questions, sure.
Yes, do we have, I didn't see an email on those 2 sites. Has there been an announcement that has come out? Because I would love to get that. And I'm sure that supervisors, especially Ann Malik, I guess, and maybe, I'm not sure where the Airport Joshua Road one is, but I think that would be helpful to get that word out to also supervisors.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Shentel. Our initial discussion is that they prefer we work on a media event together when they feel okay. So that I can follow up. I understand the concern, and I'm pressing on to answer that same concern. But I will follow up and let them know. I've heard from the ABBA board, and I think that's probably across the board.
Is Emily on point for coordinating that from Albemarle's standpoint?
Yes, we've talked briefly about it thus far. Yes.
You beat me to it, Bucky. I was going to just make sure we include Cape and Emily Kilroy in the announcement process. Thanks.
Yep.
Anything else on that, Mike?
No, sir. I think I've got Derek on via dial-in. So thanks for dialing in.
Yeah, sorry about that. As soon as you hit the promote button, it just sort of hung up my app. So I'm not sure what happened.
Yes, no problem. Thanks for joining via your phone. I appreciate the call in. Yep. So if we can go back and talk a little bit about VADI 2020, Derek, thank you for joining the call.
Mike, would you introduce Derek?
Hello, Eric. This is Derek Cully with the CenturyLink Lumen, and he's a senior government affairs representative for the state of North Carolina and Virginia. So Derek and I have been working very closely together on both the VADI applications 2020 and 2021. So Derek can provide us an update on first the 2020, and I think I provided updates on 2021, but if there's nothing else, I think the important thing is just to get everybody up to speed on where we are with 2020 and the 8 projects involved there. So Derek, on to you.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone. Sorry about the technical issues I had as I'm traveling and not in my home office like normal. I'm actually in Virginia, in Fredericksburg right now, pulled over at a Target. But we did construction and we have started placing fiber for our 2 projects in the northern part of the county, so the Buffalo Hills area, as well as the Watts Passage area. If the Watts Passage has not started yet, we'll be starting very soon. So we don't have a timeline yet on when we expect to get those projects finished. We're still aiming for March for all the sites, but in reality, you know, we need to get some of the projects finished well in advance of March. So Optimistically, I'm hoping we have some customers up and working before the holidays, but it's going to take us getting a little bit more of the work done before we can start setting some timelines. So I'll be working with Mike over the next couple of days and weeks to just relook at our FAQs that are posted on the ABBA site. And as we start having some milestones and any new information for customers, we'll be posting it on there. Mike, not sure if you want me to talk about 2021 or what update you gave. I apologize, I missed it, but we're very optimistic between the extra money that was appropriated, having 49 million plus in the bucket now that our project should hopefully be approved here in a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, I wish it were a couple of weeks too, but we said exactly the same thing, Derek, other than I'm optimistic that we'll get an announcement by the end of 2020. Maybe you know more than I do. I'd love to hear early on, but we'll get there. Yeah. All right. So thanks for that update. I mean, one of the questions we had was along the Green Creek Road area. There seems to be, there's been multiple reports of construction potentially going on there. Maybe that's pre-construction or potential replacement, but just wondering if we have answers for the questions that are coming from the Green Creek Road area. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I do not. And I think I had someone actually email me a question about that work the other day. And I've been wrapped up in some other things. I've not gotten an answer yet. I know it's not related to our fiber build for Vadi. It doesn't mean we're not building fiber that for some other purpose that we could use for the project or something like that. But I know as far as our crews directly working on the Vadi projects, we've started up in the Buffalo Hills area, and next on the list is Watts, which is just east of there.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Thanks, Derek. Mike, did you speak at all to the CARES Act?
No, it's next on the agenda item. So CARES, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe longer, the governor's office put forward another $30 million in CARES funding. And that CARES funding has similar to the coronavirus relief funds, has a time frame on it. It has to be allocated and spent prior to 12/25 in the case of the governor's 30 million. The county has been very fortunate to partner with Civic Firefly. One of the advantages of that is that they were preparing for putting together an extension of their Midway project and other locations. And we were fortunate enough to work with them and the community. So the Birches Creek community was involved in getting together what are called private easements for some of the roads, which was really going to be a challenge, from the time frame to get everything done. So fortunately, we were able to put things together with help from a temporary employee with us, John Noreen. We've gone through and put forward an application, and last week we were notified that we were awarded funds to move that project forward. So within the county, it's $230,245 coming from the state to build out to at least 62 locations if they choose to tie into the Firefly service from the corner of Midway Road, Birches Creek Road to 250 and the side roads that are involved there. So a really, really good project. We wish we could have done more. We have several in the wings that are similar, definitely underserved areas. We just didn't have enough time from a construction schedule to submit them. We're ready to submit them if for some reason there's more money.
A 2-month window is almost no time at all.
Yeah, it's tough. CenturyLink has been working with us too. Derek can speak to that. We've been looking at things. It's just the time frame is really tough. Same thing coming back from Comcast. We're trying to figure out ways to get around that 2-month window, but it's something that we don't want to stop doing the design and engineering work. It's certainly a valued thing. So we're going to continue in case there's more funds that come in or the deadline's extended, or there may be an exception. Maybe there's a way that we could write in an exception that says for broadband projects tied to CARES, there you can submit an exception to the 12/30 date. So there's a lot of ideas that are flying about, I guess. It's just, we just need to keep on target and keep designing and keep getting ready in case more funds offered. So that's the update on the CARES funding. We're very thrilled that the governor's office put the money forward, and working together, we think we can potentially do even more with it.
I'm a little confused, Mike.
Sure.
You said you were considering writing an application and requesting some extra time for the broadband.
No, we haven't. No, we don't. We have the applications ready to submit, but if the deadline's not extended, we know we can't complete them within the deadline. If that does that make sense?
It does, but
right
it
now there's
sounded
no
like
way.
you were.
There's no way to right now. There's no way to request an exception. There's nothing
Okay.
in the federal guidelines that allow us to request an exception. It's just an idea more than
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Does that help? Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like you were planning on doing that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to clarify that.
Good
Okay.
point.
Trevor?
I have a related question to Supervisor Palmer. Has there been any discussion or requests from localities to extend the deadline, especially as it relates to broadband and just because of the time that it takes to get that infrastructure built out? Are you aware of any discussions at the state level or any requests? Is there any value in ABA penning a letter to request that we've identified additional projects? The time window of execution doesn't allow it to be complete. I guess, would it hurt for us to do that, or is it not worth the effort?
I think that was a question for Supervisor Palmer, but I can answer.
No,
it as
actually,
well.
that was a question for you, Mike. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was riffing off of what Supervisor Palmer said.
I see. I got you.
And
Yeah, I definitely.
I've
been. I'm glad you asked the question. I'm glad both of you asked the question because I do think there's value, and my proposal would be the letter potentially would go to Senators Kane and Warner. Because it is something that would have to be done at the federal level, because we're limited in that the funds that are coming to the Commonwealth are directed through the federal Department of Treasury. So the question would be, is there can either of our senators and our representatives, I shouldn't leave them out, can they make some sort of exception or just extend the deadline? I know there's been additional talk from other states, and there may have been some things that are going on within the Commonwealth. So I would echo what Trevor is indicating, is that I would appreciate and can draft a memorandum or a letter that would go to our elected representation at the federal level. I'd like to hear from Waldo. He's kind of sitting back with that pensive look. I don't mean, yeah.
Nothing to add. I'm just listening.
I think that would be an effort well spent. Anyone disagree?
No, and I would go ahead and CC the governor's office just to make things complete.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
From a protocol perspective, would we as a board want to see that letter and approve it at our next meeting, or because of the timeliness of that?
Needs to go out.
I think the thrust of the letter is clear.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine anyone would object, and if Mike needs anybody to look at it or edit it, I'm sure our Cape people will do that. But I would be glad to, or I'm sure anybody else on the authority would be glad to help. So speed is of the essence.
Richie chimed in, and he's probably going to talk about board conducting matters from the board outside of a meeting. So,
okay.
Well, my view is that's a task that's within the wheelhouse of the chief administrative officer. But if the board wants to be conservative and safe, they certainly could be a motion and just authorize him to do it. But I think that's what we have a chief administrative officer for.
Fine.
I agree.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that topic, Mike?
No, I think we're at good outcome. I'll definitely get the letter together.
And did you finish the CRF update already?
Yes.
Okay, so that takes us, Mr. Henry, to the financial report. We've all received budget information, which was fantastic and multicolored.
So as the newly appointed treasurer, we didn't have a format to start with or work with. So I worked with Mike and his staff, a management analyst, to put together. The budget has been tracked, but I wanted to try to put it together in a format that I could provide on a monthly basis. And so what I shared with you, and I'll pull it up, was a PDF. And the PDF is just a summary page of a workbook that we use that pulls in data from our financial management system. So Mike, am I able to share? Oh, I should have asked that before the meeting.
Yeah, or I can easily put it up.
I'll pull it up. All right.
Yeah, here you go. It's
You
gonna
see,
work.
okay, so it has some, so this again it's a summary page. It's built off of a Excel book that is how we're tracking the details at a summary level. And Waldo pointed out the very lengthy general ledger code that we have. I will probably hide that for future reports because I don't really think it adds value. But just to, unless y'all want to see it, just to kind of navigate the report. And again, I'm open for feedback. If it's got too much, if you're worried about not understanding the information, I will refine it. But I wanted to at least start with something. So bottom line is all of the funding has been committed that we have. Starting in the kind of the upper left, our initial FY21 fund balance, which is our appropriated funding, meaning appropriated, authorized to spend, was at 1.3. Of that, we had funding that was, now I'm kind of working down the column and rows, I guess. We have had a VATI 2019 project with CVEC that was committed to. And so we actually had, and it wouldn't show up at this point because the commitment was our county share that the Broadband Authority authorized, right, and the DHCD contribution or grant. Those two together were combined and were part of this fund balance. Since the beginning of the year, this project has completed, and the project actually is closed out from a financial perspective. Mike confirmed the payment was made, and so you can kind of see how that works on the fund balance. If we had looked at this a few months ago, you would have seen a project commitment number in there, which would have reflected our contract and our purchase order. That has all transitioned into completed work, which reflects as an actual or a paid expense with no remaining balance. So then that goes to kind of the doing the math. So $1.3 million less the 373K reflects the 929,000 and change. Of that money, we have committed $291,300 towards VATI 2020, of which Mike and Derek just talked about, with an equal match. So in this case, it's a 50-50 funding match and requirement. That project is underway. So what you're seeing is our commitment of our funds. There's nothing in the paid expenses yet, and our contract with CenturyLink allows for either a quarterly billing or a single invoice. And I believe Mike has been the one kind of working through this. We're not sure yet what CenturyLink's preference will be, and once we do know that will get reflected in our actuals. And so VATI 2019 closed out, paid. Body 2020 is committed through contract and purchase order. And then finally, that leaves this balance of 637,867, of which we have a commitment, and this is a forecasted commitment. There's nothing yet in our financial system, because this is our contribution towards the Body 2021 project. And it is anticipated that will turn into a formal contract and then a purchase order once it is approved through the state. And I know there's some work that is still happening related to that scope. Mike and Derek just talked about that a little. Red, negative, that's usually a bad thing in the budget world, and it is. So there's a negative balance on this account code. But broadband also has another account code line, which is for part-time wages from, it's my understanding, a couple of years ago,
Right.
Some funding was moved into a line item to support some temporary help. Mike can talk more about that. That funding line item has a balance of $3,715,000. And what we would recommend to the authority, or what our intentions are, is to move money from that part-time wages line to this project line to cover that expense. And you'll see, by doing the math in your head, if we bring the 37 over, we'll have a small balance in our forecast. So I have a spreadsheet. I can go into that in more detail if you would like. And I'm open to questions now for technical questions, and then any feedback you have on the format. And this is something that you would like to continue on a monthly basis. Thanks.
Trevor, as a general observation, I would see moving $3,700 from one account code to another account code to be well within the purview of what I would expect the treasurer to be able to do on his or her own. Particularly when it brings us into compliance with what our budgeted or projected budgeted numbers are. So that's just good acting. And as far as formatting, this works perfectly for me.
I have a question, Trevor. I do not remember how, before COVID, how much did the board appropriate or was considering appropriating for broadband? We didn't actually, I know, vote on it because of what happened with, but what was the discussion number?
The pre-COVID budget. So you're referring to the work that was done last winter, early spring? I
guess so, yeah. Yeah.
There was no dollars dedicated towards broadband in that budget.
Okay, because we had leftover.
Right.
There were some strategic priorities that had been put in place, and the discussion around that had been, well, let's get into 21, and we can evaluate those placeholders for strategic priorities, and the board would then decide on where they wanted to move some of that money. There were other items that were discussed. I'm sure you remember, like a convenience center and some transportation work that had surfaced in the conversations. But in the FY21 pre-COVID budget, there was nothing earmarked for broadband. And then certainly when we did our revised budget process, those strategic items still carried forward, which is great news, but there's nothing additional that was added in 21. Does that answer your question, Liz?
Yeah, it does. I just couldn't remember where we had left it, because we had a substantial balance, I guess, at that point, because we weren't sure how things were going, is my memory. And the other thing, it would be nice, I know this is not part of our budget, and the format's fine. I find it slightly confusing because it's not what I'm used to looking at in the way I'm used to looking at budgets, but that's fine. I can adapt to that. The CARES money, I think it's just important for us to somehow get our mind around all the different projects and, and where that fits in. It's not our board appropriated money in this situation. So is there a way to give us that, just so we can track that and understand what that's going?
just to clarify, asking the county CARES funding that has been allocated to kind of the technology bucket, if you will, is that?
Yes, and clearly we're putting something towards Birches Creek, and we're also doing the Chantel project. So just to try to keep all these, all the money that we're spending on broadband in a place where we can explain to folks how much we're spending on broadband.
I'm gonna.
So you're talking about even the funds that are outside of ABBA's control.
Right. Yeah.
It is,
Right,
but it's related. So Mike, is that something we can pull from our CARES funding management process and as a separate bit of information that we can, what I'm expecting to do is that we'll put this onto our website so that it's public domain information. We could include with that an update on the CARES funding that has been in the executed bucket.
Yeah. I'm talking as a supervisor now because I'm constantly being told we're not putting enough money into broadband, and we're not. But I want people to know that we are doing something in what we're doing. I went through this just earlier this week with huge complaints about not putting broadband into Southern Albemarle, while clearly the CenturyLink projects that are already approved are, and some of their other work that they're doing on their own is happening along the James River and in that whole area.
I agree, Liz. I think it would be very handy to be able to kind of keep track of all these things for us as the broadband authority in one place, even if they weren't our projects. It helps make sure we have an awareness of them.
Yeah.
It's great.
I'll take that as an action item. I mean, I'm the closest to what's going on with CARES and CRF, and just to let everyone know, it's a commitment that the Commonwealth has provided to us, and the way that it's been set up is that it goes directly to the locality. So there really wasn't a choice on how the CARES funding comes to the locality. In other words, they can't provide it to the broadband authority. We had the choice of just using the county as the recipient of the funds, and it has to be kept within the county funds in order for us to execute. So it's challenging in that regard, but I will definitely keep you all up to date on how those two major projects are going.
We can report on it.
Right.
Certain.
And of course, the other thing is if all our projects that we've applied to for VATI gets approved, we clearly have to ask for more money.
Yes. Yeah, there's no question. I agree with you, Supervisor Palmer. There is a definite need for additional funds if we want to continue to move the train forward. However you want to explain it, it's definitely a significant need that continues in the county.
And what is that number?
I'm hesitant to say. Let's just say that we're working on it and we're trying to get those numbers together so that we can provide a valid estimate versus pie in the sky. And a lot depends on what the attitude of the Broadband Authority and potentially the Board of Supervisors. You know, if we are convinced, or at least if we can be convinced, that fiber to the premise is the most future-proof, then the number is going to be much different than doing fixed wireless throughout the county or some other ways to do it through a variety of different systems. So depending on which way that we want to move forward, the value or the money that's needed will change.
Well, we know what projects we've submitted for this coming year. So we have we have a baseline for what we have to, minimum of what we have to ask for, correct? I mean.
Let me see if I can answer that question. I mean, we have committed all of the funds available, all of the Broadband Authority funds that are available are committed to our one application. So we're, at this point, if we're fortunate enough to receive the offer of funds from the state, it's a 3.5 million request from the state, by the way, that does a $5.4 million project for 2,300 locations. So, you can do the math, or at least what we're trying to do is calculate the math that says if we were to go fiber to the premise for all of the other locations in the county that currently are either only ADSL, meaning they can get up to 80 meg through bonded pair copper. If we want to build all of those locations out to have fiber, then that's a different cost than focusing on just specific areas. So if you're following me, it's like, do we want to go fiber all the way to the premise throughout the county, which we can do. There's a definite opportunity for us to make a broad plan, a big plan, a comprehensive plan that says our goal is to put fiber in every premise in Albemarle County. Now that's an aggressive goal, but it may be one that we could look at because we're getting close.
Mike, can I
Sure, we're
slow
getting
you down there
close.
for a second?
Sure, okay, please do.
You look, we've taken up this question before in our strategy plan. And so while I would love to have fiber to every home in the county,
yes,
we haven't historically felt that that was realistically going to be economically feasible in the short term. And there are a lot of people who have short-term needs, exacerbated by this year in particular. But everyone who doesn't have a broadband connection in the county needs a broadband connection. And our strategy plan speaks to a number of different technical approaches to achieve that. And so I would not limit myself to fiber to the home because, well, for two reasons. One, the number you get will be unsustainable at this time. And two, the time to get fiber to the home will, keep a lot of people from getting service, such as with the CRF funding, that's going to hook up a bunch of people who don't have connection right now.
right.
So while I don't think any of us envision that as the ultimate solution, nobody knows what the ultimate solution is.
And thank you,
20
Bucky.
years from now, the technology will be different again.
Right.
I'm just asking for next year. We're going bit by bit with this COVID thing because we don't know what our revenues are going to be and we don't know how long things are asked. So what I'm talking about is what do we have to get through for next year, which is not.
I think
there's only so much we can do in a period of time.
I think that's a rack and stack. Take the projects we've got, look at the costs we're looking at, the opportunities we have already well developed, things that could move in the next year timeframe.
Yes.
For a VATI or any other kind of funding opportunity, and let's make sure that we've got those well substantiated for the budget cycle, so we can get an appropriate request in for money we can actually spend and put to good use.
That's the number I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah. And hence my challenge. We know the areas that have the most need, and the desire is to build fiber to those areas. So I think we can do that, but it's going to leave some of the people out, like individual homes that have 25/3 now that have 3 people online at the same time. People are getting knocked off, but they wouldn't qualify for where VATI is today. So I think I think the ask is more, let's continue our focus on the completely or very limited underserved areas, which we have, and we can, the broadband report allows us to get more. So we can certainly work on that, but the goal would be to continue the fiber builds that are going on, whether it's with CenturyLink and Lumen or with Civic Firefly extending off of their existing plans. So I'm hopeful that the Broadband Authority sees that direction. However,
As one of the folks who lives in one of those, as one of those folks who lives in a home with only 25/2, I certainly appreciate that we're not going to be high on the list because there are a lot of folks who are unserved,
right?
Much less well served than we are.
Yeah.
And that's just how life is. We're going to try and do the most good for the most people with the least money.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll start.
Liz, to your question, I'll just point out that whenever I, as somebody who, like I pay my bills based on grants provided to me by fine foundations, that when somebody from one of those foundations says, how much money do you need? If I don't have an answer, I got to get one. So clearly we're going to have to get an answer, but we don't have it now. And of course, due to our arrangement, you will help us arrive at what that number is. But that sure seems like something we need to, as an organization, have a set aside time to discuss.
Yeah. For next year. I'm not, we need to go a year at a time right now until we understand COVID and the economy.
I would posit that I think there's been good discussion around this. This is a financial report agenda item, but I think it's really good timely feedback. I know Mike is working on information that will be provided to the board as part of the November 18th strategic plan discussion. I think taking our current ABBA strategy plan, the work that has already been done that would allow executable projects to be applied for over the next year gets to what Supervisor Palmer is asking, and will be part of that information that would go to the board to say, kind of at a minimum level, we would recommend this, and then what are other higher levels of support might we look at. I do think it will be a constrained budget discussion, so focusing on kind of what that piece is that we're strongest about would be important. So is it okay that I'll continue to work with Mike on kind of framing that, using our guiding documents from the authority to help create that, what's next year look like from a recommendation perspective.
Is there any objection to proceeding as Trevor outlined?
Not at all. And I just will reiterate my request from before is please give a few words in the presentation about some of the other barriers that are not just money. Thank you.
Or not just the money the county spends. They may still be money barriers, but yeah. Okay, so that's how we'll go forth on that. Was there anything else from the financial side, Trevor?
Yes, sir. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you. Great discussion. I'm delighted to have some activity there. Well done. New business, the Regional Broadband Partnership Exploratory Committee update. There couldn't be a better acronym, huh?
That's my item. I think it's exploratory and it's RDP. So you may hear more about the RDP. It's an effort that's going on within the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. So all of the representative counties are involved, and we're trying to work together to put together regional projects, because everyone knows that the need for broadband doesn't stop at a county border, as well as the providers, especially, they're looking at, providing support to more than just one county. They want to go at a regional level. If Comcast is building in Greene County, there's no reason for them to stop at the Albemarle County border and not include Albemarle County residents on the county side. So it's, building that interconnected fiber network that supports the entire region. It's a goal to make this one of the most highly redundant fiber connected region as possible. Central Virginia as the heart of the Commonwealth and the home of the University of Virginia and a lot of medical institutions, just a lot of great things. The defense industry, it just seems like working together as a region, we can put together a much better plan that brings us to the point where we have redundant, reliable fiber internet going throughout the region, not just in individual counties. So we'll keep going on that. It's the RDP, the
RDP.
Regional, yeah, or RPD, something like that. If I could ask the chair to read the acronym again, that'll give us the
Regional Broadband Partnership. R is in boy, P.
Yeah. I didn't see that in the agenda. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I think it came out as a late item that's on the county website. So we've only met once so far, so I'll provide more input as we get further along with that initiative. But thank you for that time to update. Any questions about the Regional Broadband Partnership? Oh, okay.
Just keep us informed, Mike. Thanks.
Will do. Yeah.
The next item is 7B, the CenturyLink service discussion.
Sure, I will bring Derek Kelly back in. And I just want to make some opening remarks. I hope that Derek will let us know what is happening with CenturyLink and Lumen as he as he comes in and talks to us about the changes that are going on with the company briefly, because we have a lot going on, and I know we're running late. It's almost 6 o'clock. But so Derek, has been a very good partner with us and has made himself available to everyone on the Broadband Authority, and is also available to all of the supervisors directly. So he's confirmed with me that he's there to help. So if there are citizen issues that are coming directly to the Board of Supervisors about CenturyLink or Lumen issues, that he is there to support them. So telephone calls, the emails, setting up meetings, if there's a group of citizens that need to talk about specific issues, Derek's at your disposal. So I just want to let everyone on the Broadband Authority know that he's here to help you. The next thing is that Derek and I have met with Trevor Henry and Waldo of the ABA board, and we've gone through a few things, but we're going to highlight some of the things that we've discussed, and one of which is the reasons for outages. He's going to talk about his external plant, meaning the outdoor equipment and things that are external to the CenturyLink system that have challenges. So he'll talk about some of the reasons that we have outages. Next, there's going to be an update on some good news, really. There's a transformation budget that Lumens has to help offset some of the older infrastructure, and he'll talk briefly about that and the positive impact on Albemarle. And then there's a new advocacy group, a customer advocacy group that is going to help resolve some of the customer issues. So we'll hear a little bit about that. And finally, the chat function, the way to use the chat function to help the residents who are reporting problems to submit their support requests. So I know I talked a lot. Hopefully I haven't stolen all the thunder here, Derek, but if you could briefly update the ABA board, I would really appreciate it. So thanks, Derek. Turning it over to you.
Thanks, Mike. I was going to say, I think you went over all of my points. I don't know that I need to talk at all. But the first thing that comes to mind as we talk about, as you get complaints from constituents and people in the community, that there's two ways of looking at it, good and bad thing. And I think the good aspect is because the Albemarle Broadband Authority and the Board of Supervisors have become so engaged on broadband issues, I think it's also lend itself to when things go wrong or if there's hiccups or whatever, that I think the visibility in the community and as elected leaders has just lent itself to people feeling comfortable coming to you for that. And that's where, as Mike said, I want to make sure I'm available as a resource. One-on-one, I've gotten text messages from Board of Supervisors in the county at 10 o'clock at night and, try to help with different issues. And just the first thing to talk about is just, I'm there as a resource. Mike talked about outages. This summer has definitely been a summer of outages. We've had some crazy issues, like cars going off the road and completely destroying some of our equipment. Equipment that we take weeks normally to install when our copper cables are there in a neat, orderly fashion, and for a car to just plow through it. We had customers down for a couple of days, but we were able to completely set brand new electronic equipment, get everything, all the copper and fiber cables coming in and out of there, re-spliced, everything reprogrammed, and all of our customers up in a matter of days. While we would always love to do it faster, just if you saw the pictures of the before and after, it's pretty unbelievable that they were even able to accomplish it in a couple of days. And then it's just been a heavy storm season in Virginia as a whole. Just the amount of lightning damage that we've suffered. Our copper plant is a lot of metal sitting out there in the community, and even if our equipment doesn't get hit directly, just trees getting hit beside it, that electricity can run through and cause damage to either to some of our terminals that are on the side of the road, or going up and traveling the copper wires up to someone's house. And the way our network boxes on the side of houses are designed is that should almost act like a surge protector of popping. And, just the amount of customers we've had to go out and repair electrical storm damage has just really spiked this summer. So just to throw out a couple, just stats on you, ideally we want to fix all of our customers. If they call in a trouble ticket, we want to be able to respond within 24 hours. We were more or less on pace to do that for the first 5 months or so of the year. During the summer months, that spiked up to about 2 days throughout all those storms, which we're still feeling pretty good about. If we, even with the summer load, be able to get to it within 2 days. We struggled to find some extra contractor resources to sort of augment our staff during the busy months. And then September happened, and we definitely hit some hiccups. We had some scheduling issues, some staffing issues. We're, as an organization, we're still dealing with the impact of COVID. Some of our employees having to take emergency PTO for helping with childcare issues and schooling issues. We also had an employee have to go out on military duty in support of COVID efforts. All those things resulted in us taking about 4 days on average in the month of September to respond to our customer issues. We've brought some additional resources down from Pennsylvania for the last couple of weeks. We're now at a point where we're caught up again and responding within 24 hours to our customers and where we want to be. So our goal and our trend is to just continue that through the rest of the year. Mike talked on a couple things. I'm always here to help and help with customer issues. But the one thing I always recommend is if you do have a customer come to you about a certain issues, just ask that they place a trouble ticket first, because that can save a day. If I have to send a note to a group to place a trouble ticket, sometimes that can waste an entire day getting someone to actually get that request and place a ticket in the system. There's two main ways to place those tickets, either by calling into support or going on our website and using the chat feature. I always like the chat feature. I've done it a couple of times over the last couple of months just to help out some customers that were running into issues and said they had trouble placing a ticket. So I wanted to put myself in their shoes. So I logged into our chat feature. And those technicians that are working on chat, they're helping 5 to 8 customers at a time versus one person on a phone. So they can help a lot more customers at a time. I was able to get through to someone in a minute or two. I think I did it 2 or 3 times over the last month or so. So if you just go to your normal search engine, search for CenturyLink chat, it's usually the first or second link that comes up. And I always encourage people to do that as a faster way of contacting us. And then Mike also talked about our customer advocacy group. Up until the last month or so, if Mike or one of the supervisors came to me with a customer issue, I would usually go directly to our field teams and have them help with resolving the issue. And that's good. But the one piece that's missing is there's really no tracking mechanism for that. Outside of my inbox and my email folders, no one really knows that I made that interaction. So our customer advocacy group is not new, but I've started engaging them on issues that I don't see as an immediate safety concern or something that we really need to jump on that second, is getting our customer advocacy group engaged on that customer. They'll contact the customer directly. They'll be that single point of contact for the customer. And then if they have questions after a technician visit, they can go and contact that same representative and, be on a first name basis with someone. And all of that is logged in our systems where there's a history of customer interaction. So, if you send something to me on email, don't be surprised if I refer to our customer advocacy group or our CAG group. And you might see some of their names starting to pop up in emails as well. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it back over to you. If there's any questions I can answer, I'm happy to do that.
I do want to just say a couple of things. First of all, Derek, I really appreciate your responsiveness. It's been great with the emails. I will say that sometimes it's hard for people to find those tickets when they've called multiple times and people haven't showed up and things like that. I did have a very, very frustrating experience with your chat online a few months ago. But that was my experience. I ended up calling instead. But I would love to hear, but again, I really appreciate all the emails that you've exchanged with me over the last several weeks. What about this transformation budget to offset the aging infrastructure?
Thank you for the reminder. I was going through the points in my head and completely skipped over that one. So historically, what we've done for our operations team is basically every team has had a budget to work within, and it's I won't say that we weren't strategic in how we used that money, because I think the teams tried their best with just trying to estimate, what are the hot areas and what are the areas that are causing the most trouble. But over the last couple of months, we've really put some systems in place and are calling it our transformation budget. Digital transformation is one of the hot terms in all industries and all sectors right now. And we've really taken that to heart with our operations team on how they go about repairing our plant and trying to take more of a business case approach. So when we review our body projects, we really look at, how much money is it going to cost us to deploy that fiber infrastructure, and, how much revenue do we anticipate getting on that, and sort of what is that gap between what we feel like we can spend and have a reasonable return on that investment and what it costs. So we're taking that same approach from an operation and maintenance budget. So not how much money will we make on that, but how much money will we save, and really taking a strategic look at each one of those terminals on the side of the road. How many trouble tickets do we get out of a single one of those, or a single section of cable of maybe 500 feet or 1,000 feet or a couple thousand feet? How many trouble tickets are coming through that section? We know how much it costs our company every time we have to send a technician out. So trying to take a business case approach for that. And if we can prove in that if we spend X dollars to fix Y situation, it's going to save us this many trouble tickets over the next year and over the next 3 and 5 years. And if we can show a positive return on that investment, we're getting approval in there. So just in the last couple months in just Albemarle County, we've had about $500,000 approved for these transformation projects. When you see those little green boxes that stick up in people's yards, we've gone through and are rehabbing or have rehabbed close to 700 of those in the county. So when we talk about rehabbing, in every one of those terminals, there's each customer's pair of wires that go back to our equipment basically come into a splice point there. So going through and freshening up those splice points that deteriorate over time and with weather conditions. So, cutting those back, re-splicing them, make sure everything is a clean, crisp connection. Also working on the bonds and grounds. So like I said, all that storm damage that we've suffered over the summer months, those storm damage, we try to have proper bonding and grounding in those to basically absorb and prevent electrical strikes. They don't prevent everything. And when we do have electrical interference, those bonds and grounds become destroyed, and you have to go through and rehab those. So we've spent time to have contractors go through and basically rehab close to 700 of those. We've also identified and been able to successfully replace close to 8 miles of copper infrastructure in areas that we're proven are getting an unreasonable amount of trouble tickets through them, and show that if we can replace them, that we can actually end up saving money, and have been able to go back to our finance organization that approves our capital spend for all of North America and say, hey, we need to spend this money in the Charlottesville area to fix this issue. And we've been very successful, I'd really say, over the last 5 or 6 months with those projects.
8 miles of just the copper going right to people's houses, or is this? I'm curious. I guess I'm curious how much of the problem is the old copper lines going to people's houses. I keep hearing that.
This is mostly copper down along the road itself. When it comes to copper drops going up to someone's home, I've seen in different email chains and just having conversations that, the lines going to my house are old. So I guess it's just a general statement. Not every line that is 5, 10, or 20 or 30 years old is bad. And on the flip side of that, not every drop that's been installed within the last 5 years is good either. Unfortunately, when lightning strikes, it doesn't look and see or ask us what year we installed it before it decides to strike it. And metal is metal no matter how old it is. So there's stuff that, for an example, I was in our operations team back in 5 or 6 years ago and managed a group down in North Carolina. We'd replaced a section of copper after a hurricane came through and wiped it out. We replaced a 3,000-foot section of cable And within a matter of months, there was a bad electrical storm that ended up completely frying that cable. And instead of having 100 or 200 little copper wires, that basically welded them all together, and we had to replace that section again. So, you know, it's no different than the electrical service drop that's going to your house. You know, most homes that are 20 or 30 years old haven't had their electrical drop replaced going to their home. It's the same thing with the wires coming up for phone and internet. So if we identify
Yeah, I'm sorry, Derek, is there an age at which you decide to replace those 50 years, 40 years?
No, there's not a set age. It's really, you know, when we're troubleshooting, if a customer calls in a trouble ticket and if we identify there's an issue, the first thing we do is, you know, we try to fault locate that. So if we can locate it to an exact section of that drop that's causing an issue, maybe there was an animal that was digging in the ground and chewed into some of our cable. Maybe it was, you know, someone planting some trees and accidentally nicked it, or, you know, some other issue that's causing an issue on just one section of that drop. We can go in and basically put in a small piece and bypass that. If it's not something that we can fault locate to a specific point, then we look at replacing it. And, you know, that's the same that's true for a drop that's 6 months old or that's, you know, 50 years old, is how is it functioning? Is it causing issues on the line that we need to consider replacing it?
Well, I could keep going with my questions, but Bucky's gonna cut me off at some point.
I was actually going to say, does anyone else have a question?
And Supervisor Palmer, happy to just, you know, take conversations offline as well if you have more questions and we don't have time.
Sure. I mean, I'm really curious about your asset management plan, but anyway, I can do that offline.
Derek, thank you once again. Were there any other concluding remarks you wanted to make?
I do not, but just happy to be here as a resource if anyone needs to reach me. And if you don't know my phone number, Mike can give you my cell phone number.
Well, thank you again. And that'll take us to item 7C in our agenda, adjusting the April 28th, 2021 ABBA regular meeting. Mike, is this coming from you? You're muted, Mike.
Thank you for noticing. Yes, we have to move the date because it conflicts with the budget hearing. So there's a budget hearing on the same evening as our Broadband Authority meeting. It's not something we have to do right away, but maybe it's a smart thing to do to sort of get it adjusted as such. So looking ahead, just letting everybody know you know, I think we looked at our dates and this was my mistake. I should have been looking more forward because that budget hearing has been on the county calendar. So.
Which day is that again?
That's in April, the April date.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So we could do it the Tuesday before, one day before. Or better yet, we can just look later and everyone can send me a date and we'll decide. Or we could decide tonight, so it's up to y'all.
I think you've covered the full range of choices available. Anybody have an objection to Tuesday?
I don't know. I may or may not have to go to a planning commission meeting. I won't know until close to that date.
How about that Monday?
A Monday would work.
I have available any night, any evening that week. Prefer not to be Friday, but it can be Friday if it needs to be.
I can do
Waldo?
Monday.
Monday?
I got no
okay?
problems. Yep, any of these days.
Well, I would move to change the meeting time to 5 o'clock on the 26th of April. Slide the 28th of April meeting to the 26th of April at the same time slot. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Got a second. All those in favor, Trevor?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Waldo,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Thank you, Mike, for calling it to our attention. I'm sure there'll be other things that pop up.
Yeah.
And we'll try and deal with them as they arise. We've exhausted our agenda. Were there any other items of business?
I think I should have made this announcement when Derek was online. Just a reminder, and we're putting out a press release. It may already be out, that with future communication, especially with the citizens, and this is part and parcel of me. It's almost like I need to put this in my email signature, but we really want the citizens to continue to submit broadband reports. We're getting more and more pockets of areas of why weren't we included? And it's turning out that there's like pockets of areas where there's 10 or 15 people that haven't been in any of our big areas. And the best way is to get folks to use that broadband report. It's a very easy URL, www.albemarle.org /broadband report. And we like seeing the reports. It's great to see the data. It's great data to mine. So we're excited. And anytime you have a chance to let people know to fill out the report is great. So thank you for that time, Chair.
We had kicked around one time, and I, almost in jest, but still simply contemplate, is the sort of thing that we could solicit in some other mailing the county sends out, such as, property tax bills or something like that.
What I
It's
like
not
about the
something you can
property
do at the
tax
spur of
bills,
the moment, but if we planned in advance with the appropriate department, could we piggyback?
I'm wondering if you can piggyback on something where people are already thinking about the value of their home. Like, did you know that houses with broadband are worth X% more?
It's a good segue.
Attention.
Do we send out, I can't remember this because I haven't had a mortgage, thank goodness, in many years. Do we send it to the mortgage company or do we send it to the individual, the taxes?
Both in that case. The individual gets it, and then there's a note that says also submit it to your mortgage company.
Okay.
Bucky, I'll representing finance on this one, I will say that is theoretically possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's chew on that in the future and see if that's something that would bear fruit that'd be useful to the county in general.
Yeah, we can tee that conversation up with our CFO. Obviously we missed a window that we're in now would be the spring billing, but I'll Mike, we can tackle that one. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Every 6 months, this choice comes up again. So
Yes,
yes, it does. It does. It's a great idea.
And it touches all all the locations really in the county.
Yeah.
So, okay. Is there anything else?
Nothing for
Is there
me.
a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Let me just run the list again. Trevor?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Waldo?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. I thank you all very much, and we stand adjourned. Oh,
See you, everybody.
see you all.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye.
Good evening.